Emma's first day at the Eldritch Salon started with an intoxicating mix of jasmine and dread. The aged storefront, nestled between an abandoned bakery and a dimly lit pawn shop, had a faded sign swinging in the wind, its creaks harmonizing with her jittery heartbeat. Emma, with scissors as sharp as her dreams, stepped through the threshold, her eyes sparkling with ambition, yet shadowed by an inexplicable anxiety. The interior was surprisingly modern, juxtaposed sharply against its decrepit exterior. Mirrors lined every wall, reflecting an infinite number of pristine hair stations. The air was thick with hairspray and secrets. Her colleagues, two eerily poised women named Clara and Jess, greeted her with smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. "Stick to the rules and you'll love it here," Jess whispered, as if the walls themselves were listening. Emma nodded, taking note of the peculiar emphasis. Midway through her first cut, a simple bob that she executed with nervous precision, an old lady entered, leaning heavily on a twisted cane. Her hair was a waterfall of silver, eyes sharp as flint, boring into Emma immediately. "Ah, the new girl. You'll do just fine if you remember the rules," the old woman rasped, her voice like gravel. Clara quickly interjected, leading the woman to her usual seat. "Emma, dear, Mrs. Morrow has been with us since the beginning. She knows the salon better than anyone." Emma approached, her hands slightly trembling as she draped a cape around the old woman. Mrs. Morrow's eyes locked onto hers in the mirror's reflection, a knowing smirk playing at the corners of her lips. "Cut it all off," Mrs. Morrow demanded, a sternness in her tone that brooked no argument. Emma hesitated. Such a drastic change seemed reckless for hair so beautifully aged. But recalling Jess's words, "Stick to the rules," she began. As each strand fell, the air grew colder, the salon's lights flickering ominously. Mrs. Morrow's stories filled the space. Tales of girls long ago who hadn't heeded the rules, who hadn't listened to the warnings, who had vanished without a trace. Emma's heart raced, her initial excitement souring into terror. "Why do you stay, Mrs. Morrow?" Emma finally asked, her voice barely a whisper over the snip of her scissors. "Because, dear, someone must keep the balance," the old woman replied, her eyes darkening. "And the salon needs its sacrifices." The final lock of hair fell to the floor, and the lights stabilized. Mrs. Morrow stood, seemingly younger, her skin less wrinkled, her back straighter. Emma stared in horror as the old woman walked to the door, turning with a sinister smile. "You did well, child. See you in the morning. Remember, always follow the rules." The door closed with a resounding thud, leaving Emma alone with her reflection, and that of a shadowy figure behind her. She turned but found no one. The mirror, however, told a different story. Her own reflection was aging, hair graying before her eyes. Clara and Jess reappeared, their smiles now genuine, relieved. "You passed, Emma. Tomorrow you'll feel like you've been here forever, because you will be." Emma realized the rules weren't meant to protect her, they were meant to bind her. She was the new keeper of the salon, her youth the price for breaking a rule she never knew existed, never cut the last lock of Mrs. Morrow's hair. As the realization sank in, Emma's reflection faded, her place among the infinite mirrors secured, another rule etched in the history of the Eldritch Salon.